It's 3:17 in the morning. Your phone is glowing in the dark, your chest is tight, and your mind is rehearsing disasters that haven't happened yet. Somewhere between the unread emails, the bills, the regret, and the fear, your life starts feeling less like something you're living and more like something that's happening to you. Nearly 2,000 years ago, a Roman named Seneca saw this exact trap with terrifying clarity, and what he discovered can pull you out of it. But first, let me tell you why this matters more today than ever. Seneca was not a monk on a mountain. He was not detached from the world. He lived inside the machine. He was rich, politically powerful, famous, and dangerously close to the Roman Emperor Nero, a man so unstable that serving him was like sleeping beside a lit fuse. Seneca knew wealth, he knew status, he knew influence, and he also knew fear, exile, humiliation, chronic illness, and the constant threat of death. That's why his writing hits differently. This isn't abstract philosophy from someone hiding from reality. This is Stoic philosophy forged in the center of chaos. He was exiled to Corsica for years. Later, he was dragged back into politics to tutor Nero. Imagine that for a second, your survival depending on the mood of one of history's most volatile rulers. And yet, in letters and essays written under pressure most of us can barely imagine, Seneca kept returning to the same question: what can no misfortune take from you? That question is the beating heart of Stoicism. This is why Seneca matters now, because modern life has given us more comfort than emperors had and somehow less peace. We have climate-controlled rooms, instant delivery, unlimited entertainment, and constant connection. But anxiety is everywhere. Attention is shattered, meaning feels thin. And here's the uncomfortable truth: convenience has not made you stronger. In many cases, it has made you more fragile. That's the part people hate hearing. It sounds harsh. It is harsh. But Seneca would say the point of philosophy is not to flatter you, it's to free you. So what are the 5 Seneca principles that can actually change your life forever, not inspire you for 10 minutes, not sound wise in a journal, actually change the way you face fear, pain, time, ambition, and yourself? What he wrote next changed everything. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Read that again in your mind. Most of your pain is not coming from life itself. It's coming from the stories your mind is telling about life. This is not motivational fluff. It is a brutal psychological insight. Long before neuroscience, Seneca understood that the human mind can generate fear without any immediate danger. A conversation hasn't happened yet, you suffer. A future loss hasn't arrived, you suffer. A judgment from others may never come, you suffer anyway. And here's where most people get it wrong. They think Stoic means becoming emotionless. It doesn't. Stoicism is not emotional numbness. It's emotional discipline. It's learning to separate what is real from what is rehearsed. Seneca's first principle is simple, but not easy. Interrogate your fear. Ask it for evidence. Ask it whether it is reporting reality or predicting fiction, because your mind is a brilliant servant and a terrible master. How much of your exhaustion comes not from what happened, but from what you kept imagining would happen? Modern Stoicism turns this into a practical exercise. Before a hard conversation, before a risk, before a leap, write down the actual facts. Not the fantasy, facts. What do you know? What are you assuming? What is within your control? What is not? This one habit can cut anxiety in half because clarity starves panic. And here's the counterintuitive part. Some anxiety survives because it gives people identity. If you are always overwhelmed, always stressed, always barely holding it together, then the drama becomes familiar. Familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar peace. That statement will make some people angry. Good, it should. Seneca would tell you that your mind needs training, not trust. Not every thought deserves respect. Not every fear deserves obedience. But there's something even more shocking than this principle, because once you stop being ruled by imagined pain, you have to face the thing you've been wasting most carelessly of all. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." That line is devastating because it destroys one of the biggest lies in modern self-improvement, that your dissatisfaction is mainly caused by not yet having enough. More money, more followers, more recognition, more upgrades, more experiences, more proof that you matter. But if your inner condition is based on more, then success does not end your hunger, it trains it. This is where Seneca separates himself from cheap productivity culture. He doesn't ask, "How do I get more?" He asks, how much of what I want is actually necessary for a good life? That is a very different question, and it's much more dangerous, because it threatens entire industries built on your insecurity. You want a controversial statement? Here it is. A lot of what people call ambition is just socially approved insecurity. Not all ambition, but a lot of it. Not a devotion to excellence, just a desperate attempt to outrun the feeling of being ordinary. Seneca was wealthy, yes, and that matters. He wasn't condemning possessions from a place of ignorance. He was warning that possessions possess the unprepared mind. The Stoic does not reject wealth. The Stoic rejects dependence. If comfort becomes a requirement, you become weak the moment comfort disappears. So what do you do with this? Practice voluntary discomfort. This is one of Seneca's most underrated principles. Sleep occasionally without luxury. Eat a plain meal on purpose. Walk instead of driving. Spend a day without the constant stimulation you think you need. Why? Not to punish yourself. To remind yourself, I can endure less than I have. Therefore, I do not need to fear losing everything. That's freedom, not having everything, needing less. Ask yourself honestly, if the external signs of success vanished tomorrow, would there still be a self left standing? This is where it gets interesting, because once Seneca strips away your illusions about fear and craving, he turns to the one resource you cannot earn back once it's spent. Seneca wrote On the shortness of life, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. That might be the most offensive truth in all of philosophy, because it removes your favorite excuse. Most people say life is short as if they are victims of time. Seneca says no, you are often not deprived of time. You are careless with it. You donate your days to trivia, distraction, resentment, people you don't even respect, and obligations you never examined. Then you call yourself busy. And here's where most people get it wrong again. They think time management is the answer. But Seneca's point is deeper than scheduling. This is not about becoming a more efficient machine. It's about becoming impossible to steal from. If your attention is owned by algorithms, gossip, comparison, and low-grade anxiety, your life is being looted in broad daylight. Ask yourself, who is consuming your life? Not your calendar, your life. Because every yes is a no to something else. Every hour surrendered to nonsense is an hour withdrawn from growth, reflection, love, craft, or peace. Seneca would likely look at modern society and say something almost unbearable. Many people are not tired because they do too much. They are tired because too much of what they do is meaningless. So his third principle is ruthless. Guard your time like a fortress. Audit your day. Who gets your best energy? What drains you? What do you consume that leaves you emptier? Replace passive intake with intentional thought. 10 minutes of serious reflection is worth more than an hour of distracted content. And yes, that includes content pretending to be philosophy while functioning as entertainment. Make a Stoic evening practice. At the end of the day, ask 3 questions. What did I do well? Where did I act against my values? What will I correct tomorrow? Seneca himself used forms of nightly self-examination. This is how a human being stops drifting, because transformation rarely comes from one dramatic decision. It comes from repeated acts of honest accounting. And now we arrive at the hardest principle of all, the one most people resist because it sounds dark, but actually makes life brighter. Seneca wrote, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." In plain language, if you mentally rehearse hardship, hardship loses some of its power over you. This is the Stoic practice often called negative visualization. And no, it is not pessimism. It is disciplined appreciation. The point is not to obsess over disaster. The point is to stop living as if what you love is guaranteed. Think about how most people treat their lives. They act as though health will remain, as though parents will always answer the phone, as though friendships will survive neglect, as though their own body will keep cooperating forever. Then reality arrives, and they call it unfair. Seneca would call it expected. What if remembering loss is actually the secret to loving better? This principle changed lives in ancient Rome, and it can change yours now. Before a meal, remember hunger exists. Before seeing someone you love, remember they are mortal. Before entering your work, remember it can vanish. Not to become morbid, to become awake. The modern world teaches you to chase gratitude as a feeling. Seneca teaches gratitude as a consequence of truth. Once you stop assuming permanence, Ordinary life becomes extraordinary. Water becomes a gift. A walk becomes a gift. A conversation becomes a gift. Breathing without pain becomes a gift. And let's connect the dots. Principle 1 showed you that imagination can create suffering. Principle 4 reveals that imagination can also create strength. The same mind that invents fear can be trained to deepen gratitude and resilience. That is the revelation. Your mind is not merely the place where life is interpreted. It is the battlefield on which life is either lost or won. But Seneca doesn't stop there. He drives to the final point, the one that turns Stoicism from a coping mechanism into a way of life. Seneca's deepest lesson is this: everything external is on loan. Your body, your status, your reputation, your money, your comfort, your social image, all unstable, all vulnerable, all temporary. So where should you invest? In the one domain fortune cannot fully command: your character. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes profoundly liberating. If you define yourself by external outcomes, life will always control your identity. You win, you feel worthy. You lose, you collapse. People praise you, you rise. They mock you, you shrink. That is not freedom. That is slavery with nicer branding. Seneca, and yes, Marcus Aurelius later echoes this in his own way, keeps dragging us back to the same point. What matters is not what happens to you, but what kind of person you become in response. A setback can make you bitter or disciplined. Criticism can make you defensive or thoughtful. Pain can make you cruel or wise. Which one are you becoming? This is the emotional peak of Seneca's philosophy. He is not promising you safety. He is offering something better, invincibility of a certain kind. Not physical invincibility, not material invincibility, moral invincibility. The ability to remain steady when life becomes unstable. The ability to lose without being ruined. The ability to suffer without becoming small. And that is why Seneca still matters in modern Stoicism and self-improvement. Because the world keeps selling you optimization without asking the essential question: optimized for what? More output, more status, more stimulation? Seneca asks for something rarer, more substance. If you absorbed these 5 principles, your life would start to change in very concrete ways. You would question anxious thoughts instead of obeying them. You would need less and therefore fear less. You would stop treating time like an infinite stream and start treating it like sacred capital. You would appreciate what you have because you remember it can disappear. And you would measure your success less by what you own and more by who you are. That is not just ancient wisdom. That is a survival system for modern life. So let's bring this back to where we began. At 3:17 in the morning, when your mind turns against you, it will not save you to have more information. It will save you to have training. Seneca understood that philosophy is not decoration for your bookshelf. It is medicine for your mind. So here's the challenge. For the next 7 days, practice one Seneca principle each day, then repeat your favorite 2. Day 1, write down one fear and separate fact from imagination. Day 2, remove one unnecessary comfort on purpose. Day 3, audit where your time actually went. Day 4, practice negative visualization with one thing you take for granted. Day 5, ask in one difficult moment, what would character do here? And then watch what happens, not instantly, not magically, but steadily. You'll begin to notice space between you and your panic, space between you and your cravings, space between you and the noise. That space is where freedom begins. Most people will spend their entire lives avoiding these truths because they are uncomfortable. They would rather be distracted than transformed. They would rather decorate their identity than discipline their mind. But you don't have to live like that. So drop your interpretation in the comments. Which of these 5 Seneca principles hit you hardest? And which one do you resist the most? The best answers always come from this community. And if this shifted something in your thinking, subscribe. We go deeper every week into Stoic philosophy, ancient wisdom, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and the kind of philosophy that actually changes how you live. Because in the end, your peace will never come from controlling the world. It will come from controlling yourself.